Even the NRA used to support expanded background checks. And by the way, most of its members still do. Most Republican voters still do. How did we get here? How did we get to the place where people think requiring a comprehensive background check means taking away people's guns?
An emotional President Obama kept his promise for tougher enforcement of gun laws targeting people who buy without a background check, and the problem of mental illness. Lawyer James Whalen works on cases involving firearms. And one of the problems is that everyone agrees, from President Obama to the National Rifle Association, that existing laws are not being enforced.
I agree. I think there hasn't been sufficient resources to do the background checks and to go after people who are not getting the proper licenses. The laws are on the books, and so if they just simply enforce what they have, I think that would solve a lot of these problems.
Now, the Associated Press took a look at recent mass shootings and said, in most cases of these recent notorious mass shootings, San Bernardino, Newtown, Connecticut, what the president did would not have prevented those tragedies.
I agree with that, because when you look at the Newtown, Connecticut shooting, he got his weapons from his mother, who legally bought those. Right. I mean, so how do you ever solve that problem? I think if we just simply enforce what we have, I think it will put us in a better position, but it's not going to be solve all the problems or a Band-Aid for what's going on.
And one of the problems is what are referred to as a loophole, the gun show loophole. What's the gun show loophole?
Well, the gun show loophole is if you're doing a private sale. Basically, if you own a firearm, you can go sell it to anybody through a private sale, and you don't have to be licensed to do that and not run a background check. And so the idea is that if people are kind of pushing the envelope as far as that law goes, that they need to have a federal firearms license, be doing the background checks, so that the firearms are not ending up in the wrong people's hands.
In a lot of cases, the licensed firearm dealers, the people who have storefronts, sporting goods stores and so forth, think this is fine because they do have to go through all that paperwork, and they're saying, yeah, we have to play by the rules. If you want to sell to me at a gun show, you should play by the same rules.
I think it makes sense. I think people, if they're going to sell firearms to people, they should make sure they're selling it to the right person, do those background checks if they're in the business of selling firearms. Right. I think a private sale from one person to another, a firearm one at a time, one a year, I think that seems reasonable, but if you're going to engage in the business of doing it, you need the license.
Right. The real sticky point becomes, and everybody agrees, that if you take the Colorado movie theater shootings and many others, we're talking about people who are clearly mentally ill. Even the Newtown one, clearly a mentally ill individual. And you run into a sticky situation with doctors having to report that somebody is mentally ill and should be disqualified from being able to buy guns, violating the medical privacy.
Right. That's going to be a very difficult issue. How do you make that happen? And I think the concern would be people would then not go seek treatment because of the fear that now their condition, which they're trying to keep private, is now going to be reported to the federal government to prevent them from buying a firearm. The only analogy is the same with driver's licenses. You know, if you're unable to drive, a doctor has to report that you're unfit to drive
Right.
a car. So that system seems to work. Why can't we find a system that works similarly when it comes to owning firearms?
And yet we've been unable to after so many years of debate. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Thanks for
your
having me.
input. You can find a link to the law office on fox4news.com.